and welcome to Hope Unscripted, a podcast of Hope Cancer Resources.
Here, we're having real conversations about cancer, from prevention and education to support, resources, and the stories that remind us that we are not alone.
And we're your host. I'm Jamie Dietrich.
And I'm Brittany Harmon, and we're so glad you're here.
Now let's talk about hope, healing, and the journey
Unscripted. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hope Unscripted podcast. Today, we are very honored to have Charlotte Viola. Charlotte is a yoga and meditation teacher. She's been doing it for a very long time. She's a caregiver advocate and speaker, and she also has an award-winning podcast of her own called The Cancer Caregiver. Charlotte, we're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, to echo that, welcome. We're excited for this episode of Hope Unscripted. And I know you've done a lot of things in the cancer space, but today we're focusing mainly on Scanxiety. And so before we get to that, I'm going to give you a moment, and Brittany's got some specific questions for you and just dive a little bit into Charlotte.
Yeah, just kind of about your journey and how you started doing this work.
Yeah, I started because I was looking for something for myself and didn't find it. When my husband was diagnosed about a little over 12 years ago, I was a full-time yoga and meditation teacher, and I thought I had my life set. The way I prioritized the things that I needed to do to take care of myself were easy to do. And as soon as he was diagnosed, I remember I got the phone call from him right after I taught a yoga class. And from that moment on, everything that I did for myself fell apart because I went straight into survival mode. And it was difficult to not have that to use as an anchor and everything else that was going on in my life. And I didn't realize, though, that it had completely fallen apart until a few months later. I reached out to my primary care provider and I was like, look, this thing happened. I cry all the time. And she said back, I remember reading it. Well, I think first, considering what you're going through, maybe we should try meditation. And it made me so angry because that was what I was doing all day long, was walking into a room and teaching people how to handle their stress and giving them tools to use. And then as soon as I would walk out of that room, I would flip back into caregiver mode and completely leave that other part of me in that room with them. And so I realized then that I needed to go back to what I was doing, but then it had to look completely different because I was a different person now. And so over time, I realized that if it was that difficult for me to first understand what had happened and for it to fall apart so quickly when I had a lot of years of training and education and teaching, I had everything that would be the perfect thing to have for a caregiver to become a caregiver. And that completely fell apart. Without me understanding what was happening, how hard then would it be for people who didn't have that training, that experience, that just knowing that that's something that they did before and knew how to pull back into their lives when they realized that they needed to? If they didn't have that, then how can caregivers actually care for themselves?
So off.
Right. Because then they get the same message. Well, maybe you should meditate. And what does that mean? Right? Like, really, what does you should meditate? You should journal. What does any of that mean? It's just something that caregivers are told to do without any instruction. So then it just gives them something else to add on to a list of things that they're actually not going to have time. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's when I decided that I was going to look for, because even though when you know how to do something, sometimes it's easier to have someone else kind of lead you through it so that you don't have to think it through. And I couldn't find it. And I knew that over time, the things that I was experiencing, the emotions and the roadblocks, and, I was finding that I wasn't sharing the way I normally would share, let's say if I was in a mom's group or with a friend who I knew would understand. And I decided, there wasn't a lot of thought that went into the podcast itself. It was, I have a microphone, I have a computer. I know other people would want to hear my experiences. And then I can also help them through some of the things that they're going through by giving them tools that they can use when they're feeling these feelings. And so I created a podcast 6 years ago. And so every week I show up and hopefully am able to meet someone where they're at in the moment that they need it.
That's incredible. 6 years is a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Charlotte, with the podcast, are you doing other forms of like public speaking or other things along with that?
Yeah, I have some locally. I have some workshops that I do monthly that I go and I have a topic and people show up, caregivers and cancer patients. I speak nationally, so corporations will bring me in to speak to their cancer ERPs or their caregiver communities to just lead them in a hour of not only understanding and being seen, but also to leave feeling a lot calmer by the way that I work with them. I present at cancer conferences, which sometimes I'm like, you don't have anything for caregivers, so now you bring me in and we'll just do something small, to start, because I think in the cancer world, it's really easy to discount how easy it can be to get caregivers to understand that they're being seen. So little is being done that any little bit that you can do will have more impact than I think a lot of people and organizations understand.
I would imagine as a caregiver too, like your heart, your soul, your day-to-day is caring for that other person.
Exactly.
The lack of caring for yourself. Was there a certain point where you kind of realized you were going down that road and you were like, okay, I have to, because you talked about the just meditate, right? Was that the point where you kind of...
That was the turning point. And luckily that happened early on. I maybe was 3-4 months into caregiving. And I think because I had that awareness of how I was feeling and more of a connection to what my body tells me, I was able to reach out for help. But oftentimes caregivers don't have the ability to understand those signals or feel like they can reach out for help. And if
I've watched that. My grandmother was my grandfather's caregiver. I was in high school. My grandfather was diagnosed and went through a really long struggle. And watching my grandma, all she did was take care of him.
Yeah.
And she did lose herself. And by the time he passed away, it's been several years now, but she was so lost. She didn't know what to do with herself afterwards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's very common.
So now we're going to kind of flip a little bit and we'll talk more about the caregiver side, but we want to talk about Scanxiety.
Yeah.
Which is a term for everyone who's not aware. That's just that scan week, what that feels like for not just the patient, but the families going in. You have to have your annual scans. Even if you've rung the bell, you still go have the scans and that anxiety building. What does that look like and the tools that you help with?
Yeah, I think it's first important for everyone in the family when, no matter what disease, but especially with cancer is in there with them, is to understand how everyone feels and operates leading up to those appointments, but also in between those scans and for those results to show up on my chart, and then waiting for the oncologist to kind of call in and understanding what happens next. So for some people, it can start before they're even driving to the hospital. And for every person, it's different. It could be weeks, it could be days before these show up. And then it can linger until after they've already know what happens next and they've gotten all the information they've been waiting for. And I think the problem is, first of all, that not a lot of people understand that this is a thing, right? This is additional stress and anxiety on top of what everybody else is experiencing in their life. This is something that they are trying to attend to alongside trying to live normally. And so I think the first thing is for people to understand that this is a situational extra set of days or weeks or months where they're going to feel this way. And if they can understand how this shows up for them and then for their family members, then it's easier to kind of craft and rearrange how they go through their quote unquote normal lives until it subsides. So it's not usually long term. It's situational based on what's happening with their loved one's health. And it shows up with, sometimes you get a lot snappier, like you're more reactive, right? Where maybe you feel stuck, like you can't move forward and make decisions, where maybe you're exhibiting signals in your body, right? How your body tries to tell you, we need to take a moment to understand what's happening because I feel like we're in danger. And when your body and your mind feel like they're in danger, they will do what they feel they need to do, not what you want them to do, right? And so you can, lose your appetite and, feel just very like unable to focus. So any of the things that you see show up under these are signs and symptoms of stress will definitely be magnified when you're in this period. And it's very difficult for caregivers, especially because this is all leading up to a different person's experience, right? And so asking for help or being able to give themselves a little bit more space and grace to experience this is difficult for them, not only if they don't understand this is what's happening, but even if they do understand, then it's what tools can I use next in order to be able to enjoy life in this space, right? So these are moments that make it harder for you to enjoy life, but they're specifically the ones where enjoying life is more important. Because yes, we all know oncology appointments, a doctor can say one sentence that changes the rest of your life. Yeah. Like we all understand the pressure and the importance of these appointments. And so Scanxiety isn't something that someone can say, oh, you'll be okay. It'll all be fine, because we all understand and we respect the importance of whatever happens next. And so it's how can we enjoy life with the people that we're living with, that we're caring for, when it's times that are leading up to when life can change, right? So that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just, I think it's like love languages almost, right? Everybody has a different one in how they handle or how they like to be loved. And I know myself, I will overdo it, and I have to watch myself because my husband doesn't want that. Right. I'm very fortunate, like none of that's happened in my life yet, but I do think about things like that and watching other people like, you want to help. Well, some people just don't want it in that moment. And I can imagine as a caregiver standpoint, like how you have to separate that and how, what you can do to do that.
Right. And in separating your experience during a time of Scanxiety and your loved one's experience, because they're different, right? Because both of them are coming to this period of time from different angles, but understanding that you are your own person. And so the things that you are feeling and experiencing are just as valid as the person that you're caring for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you're saying all of this, I'm thinking about, like, we talk about the cancer journey a lot in the work that we do, but I mean, that's different for everyone. Different type of cancer, different, from onset on, different age groups, all the things. So thinking of specifically to Scanxiety, that can be the first time you're walking into the doctor's office to, I've been battling this for 3 years, to I'm potentially going to ring the bell, but it's contingent upon this scan.
Right.
So is there anything that you found in your study of Scanxiety, like on those different stages, or things that you would share specific to those?
Yeah, I think first it's important to understand you have your cancer history, right? And so everything and every way that you approach the next thing that happens with cancer in your household is always going to be informed by what happened in the past, right? First of all, there's no bandwidth to separate yourself from it. You could have had a bad interaction with someone the last time you were in the hospital system, and that doesn't mean that that's going to happen next, but then it's part of how you react, right?
Yeah.
And then so I think that's why every time there's a new appointment, then there's that history of the last one. It just keeps adding up. And so I think that the first thing, it doesn't matter how far into your cancer life you're in, is to understand this is a thing, right? Because like we were talking about before we started, like it's not always a term or experience that people understand other people have. I've been in webinars where I'm following the chat and people are saying, I thought this was just me. I didn't know Scanxiety was a thing. And it makes people feel so much better knowing that it's not just them, right? So understanding that this is something that almost all cancer patients and their caregivers go through. And so no matter where you are on that continuum of what appointment you're going through, understanding that it's valid, right? When you ring the bell, if you're in a surveillance mode, you feeling that Scanxiety is just as valid as someone who's in active treatment, because that's your experience, right? And so I think that oftentimes we should consider not waiting for permission to feel these things and just saying, I'm feeling this. I don't need to understand if this is right or wrong. This is what I'm feeling, and validate those feelings, which for caregivers is really hard because oftentimes their feelings are invalidated because the people that they're talking to don't want to anticipate the possibilities of the future. It makes other people really uncomfortable to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Or for the person that they're talking to not understand that caregivers have their separate needs and they shouldn't necessarily be put up back to back with the cancer patient's needs as well. They're both different and they're both real and needed.
That almost internalizing that spiraling feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you suggest, especially because I could see, and I've asked, my aunt is in treatment right now, and my uncle, bless him, he's the caregiver.
Yeah.
And I always want to check on him. I check on her all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's hard for him and what he has to do and what he's going through.
Yeah.
Everybody's always asking about her and no one's asking.
Yeah. No, I know that.
Caregiver too. Yeah.
Right.
So
especially male caregivers, they have a completely different experience.
for sure. And knowing that that's your love of your life and you're watching that happen.
Right.
So do you have any, tips to how to control that spiraling feeling?
Yeah, I think it's if you can find someone to talk things through, it might not even be to have a full-on conversation, especially if you think that person will try to minimize what you're feeling, right? But if you can tell someone, hey, the next week is going to be really rough for me, especially because my loved one is having appointments coming up. I just really need for you to text me and check on me a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you can find, first of all, what that special person in your life is good at, right? Don't say, I would really love for you to bring me those chocolate chip cookies that but then they don't know how to bake.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why would I don't want to do that. So it's always good to, if you understand the person you're asking for support from, that you really hone in on their love languages. Like you said, what are the things that they like to do? Maybe someone would love to bring you groceries, right? Maybe someone would love to bake for you, but maybe someone would say, you know what? I know that you are always, cutting your grass. Don't worry about it this week. I'm going to come do it for you.
Yeah.
Just let me know where the things are.
Just come and take some other things.
Yeah. Because if you say, let me know what I can do, you instantly give the caregiver an extra thing that they have to do. So, and a lot of times people are worried that they're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But you showing up, you trying, especially if someone's been a caregiver or their loved one has been ill for a long period of time, that support disappears very quickly from the very start. So you showing up for them, if you know that they have appointments coming up, just saying, hey, I know this is coming up, I want to be there for you. How about I do whatever that thing is?
Yeah.
Maybe they need to be pulled away for coffee, right? Maybe they like to walk in the morning, but they would love to talk to someone. Giving them the opportunity to just let out a little bit of their fears and worries, or to be able to talk about something completely different so they can distract from what's going on. But if you know someone that's going through a period of Scanxiety, just saying, I know this is hard for you, sometimes is all they need, is just to be seen for what they're going through. Yeah.
So some of what I heard in there was don't put more on the caregiver by saying, what can I do for you? I think that's a really good point, though, because, you know, I didn't think about it till you said it. And so I bet there's a ton of people that's like, I wouldn't have thought of that until you said it.
Oh, yeah.
But me saying like, hey, I know that you love lasagna. I'm going to make you lasagna and I'm bringing it over on Tuesday.
Right.
There's no decision on your part. There's nothing for you to do besides say, wow, thank you.
Right.
The date set. Yeah.
Exactly. And you can even add on and say, you just let me know if you want me to leave it at the door or if you want me to knock and let you know that it's there. Because oftentimes then if people bring food, then that requires energy you might not have, because then if they want to come in, then you're hosting them. Even if people are like, no, don't do anything special. If you're a caregiver, that is not you're the way you work. You're gonna try to make the house presentable or just be stressed out about what will need to happen, or will the doctor call while they're here? Like there's so much. So, but maybe they want human interaction with someone other than the person that they're caring for. So just asking them, telling them, I'm going to do this. Would you like for me to leave it, or would you like for me to knock so that I can hand it to you? And the person best, what they might find it offensive if you just leave food at their door. Yeah. Right. Like I wouldn't. Yeah, I have a best.
Anyone can do that, by the way.
You can leave food at my door as long as I know who it's from.
That too.
Weird meals at my door probably wouldn't be eaten. But it happens as soon as someone's diagnosed. Everyone says to the caregiver, "Let me know how I can help." And the caregiver doesn't even understand like what is happening,
what they even need.
Right? They're and then. It's, well, how could I actually explain to someone how to do the thing that I really need help with? Where then as you're trying to figure it out, you realize it would just be easier for me to just do it. Right. So when you say, how can I help, or let me know, I know it feels like it's the right thing to say. Oftentimes it's the worst thing to say, just because then as a person, especially if someone's recently been diagnosed, is trying to figure out how to rearrange their lives, then you're saying, well, if you want help, you have to do the work to tell me how to help, right? And so that's really difficult for the caregiver. And so then that's why they don't ask for help.
That's a good perspective on it too, because I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
You want help and you don't know how, but you're right. You should just tell them and hope they take it. But yeah.
And then caregivers worry about asking for help, that they don't want to put people out. And so what I usually say to them when they tell me this is, well, you're just denying that person the feeling that it gives them to help you. And so people instinctually, most times, depending on who they are, actually have a reward for helping someone. And so I'm like, don't make it all about you. Just understand that if you're not asking for someone for help, then you're not allowing them to have this feeling that it gives them as a way to like give them a different perspective. Especially if they really need help and they're struggling and they don't want to ask for it. You're not putting people out. You're just giving them an opportunity to feel good about themselves. Yeah.
Okay. Thinking about some tools and support. I know we've talked some different things that you even sent us recently about breath work and things like that. Mm-hmm. Why is those breath work like such an important thing?
Yeah. Breath work is always the main or only thing that I will start caregivers out with, because you have it always. Yeah. And it's always under your control. Although most times it's working on its own, right? Just to keep us alive. And so when you change how you breathe, or even just bring in a deeper breath, or follow the fact that you're breathing, it allows you to breathe just a little bit deeper. And what happens in your body is that as you breathe in deeper, you start to stimulate a nerve that is actually attached to your brain that affects your nervous system and allows it to know we're safe right now, right? Okay. So it's called the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve is what will tell your brain, oh, we can switch this on. We're not in danger. Because oftentimes most of us, whether we're caregivers or not, are in this sympathetic nervous system where it's fight or flight, where just the way our nervous systems were created from back when we were just became humans on the earth, it was, we need to be able to react fast because there's a tiger or there's a lion, and we need to be able to like problem solve and do things to allow us to survive. And so now those threats aren't available anymore, but it's, something negative that a doctor will tell us, or being cut off on the road while we're driving. Like that is what starts to enact that protection system. And it doesn't stop until we give it the opportunity to understand that there's no more a threat, which is hard if you're in Scanxiety and you feel like your entire life is under a threat until we figure out what the doctor says next.
Yeah.
So then when you have that deeper inhale and exhale, it allows your body to understand right now in this moment, I'm not in danger, and I'm able to relax. And so then it shifts it into a different mode. Unfortunately, we can't walk around like that 24/7, but having small moments of constantly bringing yourself back into that place where you're like, all right, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to relax, especially like if you're sitting in an oncology waiting room and you just like, you feel that tension while you're there. And so using this breath, nobody knows that you're doing it. Unless you're my family and they're like, oh, mom's deep breathing again. Or my husband will say, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just getting ready. So and it's almost always a longer exhale than the inhale is what I tell people, because it's the easiest thing for them to remember. And that can be a sigh, right? We do it sometimes without thinking, right? It's our body like signaling that like we need a break. Usually when you sigh, it's either because you're happy or because you're upset, right? And so that's a signal that your nervous system gets from it. If you do it on purpose, it works even better, because it really only takes, sometimes I'll lead people in just a minute of that, and then they'll open their eyes and they're like, oh, how long was that? And I'm like, it was a minute. And they're like, no, it felt like it was forever, because you're just bringing your mind to focus on this one thing, which it hardly ever does.
Yeah.
And then it brings your body a sense of peace. So I will tell people, if you tell someone you're going to the bathroom, no one's going to be looking for you for a few minutes. Just escape if that's what you need to do in order to get this in your day. And just sit and breathe, right? Not have to do anything special. You don't have to buy anything to be able to do it. You don't have to really be anywhere specific to get it done. But to understand that it helps you and to give yourself that pause, which oftentimes is even extremely difficult for most of us, let alone caregivers.
Do you ever have people who kind of doubt the effects of it? Like, do you ever have trouble getting people to try it, but then once they do, it's just kind of frightening?
I can see it sometimes when my talk is virtual, and if I can see the people, I can see the ones that are like, yeah, I'm ready, and they kind of like lean back and but then there's these people that and my husband is not a good relaxer, right? Yeah. And so I can see they're like fidgeting with stuff, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, I get it. It's hard, especially if this is not something you normally do.
Yeah.
But it's the way that I kind of phrase things where I'm like, don't close your eyes. It's fine, right? And you don't have to do this, but listen, right? And usually I'm talking to the person, that one person who is really having difficulty. There's a lot of reasons why people don't like closing their eyes, right? There's a lot of reasons why breathing differently can cause anxiety. And I don't know their backgrounds, right? And so sometimes that has a lot to do with it. There's something that has happened in the past that makes that difficult. But then I can see, even though if their eyes are open and they're still kind of like, sitting upright and not relaxed, like I can tell, like I can see when their shoulders start to relax a little bit more, or the muscles of their face do. And so just knowing that they had that moment where their body was like, oh, wait, even if they are like, I didn't do the breathing, I'm like, but I saw your body relax. And so,
Kind of gave it away.
Yeah. It's normal for breathing to be complicated for some people. And it's very normal for some people to be like, I'm not that type of person. I don't do things like that. And it's frustrating for me, of course, but also, it will come with time. Yeah.
Yeah, I fall in that. I don't know that that's for me category, or I did. Let me say that I did. I tried breathworks.
Yeah.
We had someone come and teach a class actually at our office at Cancer Resources, and he was incredible. It was a small group. I think there was maybe 6 of us, and he walked us through several different breathing techniques. And some of them you feel a little silly, when you get into certain ones. But at the end of it,
right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like I will tell anybody.
Yeah.
Like, stop being afraid. Don't judge it.
Right.
Just go do it.
I mean, you do it all the time.
Take a breath. And I, just in normal everyday life, I find myself sometimes, like before I walked in here, I was sitting in my car and I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Let's go do this. It's like a cleansing moment.
Yeah. And it's something that you can do anytime you want.
Yeah.
Right. And so once you learn how it feels, then slowly, I'm just warning you, you're going to start to try to figure out, how do I make this work in other parts of my life?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm up at 2:00 in the morning. How do I go to sleep? Oh, let me try breathing a little, right? When someone at work is going to have a really uncomfortable conversation with me, maybe I'll try. Like, it starts to become something that you do without thinking about it, because you're like, I'm feeling A, so then I'm going to do B.
Yeah.
And then the more awareness and more of an experience you have where breath actually works for you, then the more you're like, wait, I want to know more.
So it normalizes in your everyday
Exactly.
life. And
Yeah. Because you start to realize, well, I'm already breathing. I can pull this extra breath out whenever I want, because I know how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
Congratulations on doing that.
Thank you. Well, we have about a minute left. Brittany, do you have a final question?
If anybody is listening right now and they have scans tomorrow, what would you say directly to them?
To know that you deserve to take a moment for yourself and pause and just take a breath and understand that this is hard. You're doing something that's incredibly difficult that most people in your life probably don't understand.
Yeah, that's really, it's important to know those things. And we really appreciate our talk about Scanxiety and been very helpful in learning some of these things for sure. Jamie, you want to close this out for today?
Of course. So, Charlotte, thank you again. We really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to share this with our audience, and hopefully kind of promote your podcast as well. It is really incredible. I think the one thing we didn't hit that I would like to mention real quick in closing is you have resources on your webpage, and they're like 5 minutes, and you're kind of talking through. Will you say a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, it's actually turned into its own podcast. So now I have 2. But on the website as well, the Cancer Caregiver podcast started out with some extra breathing episodes. And now the Caregiver Breathing Room is only breathing exercises, and it's just 5 minutes. So
real quick, could do it in your car on the way to work.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are all available to whoever needs them.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, be sure and check that out for extra resources in Scanxiety. And we will continue again here in a few minutes. We're going to invite another guest in and continue for episode 2.
Yeah, and talk about caregivers some more. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much for listening to Hope Unscripted.
Join us next time as we share real stories, meaningful resources, and reminders that you're not alone. Until then, keep choosing hope.